Howdy y'all, my name is Alexis Rodriguez and I will be presenting my subsector analysis report. The subsector that I will be analyzing is the human services sector. This abstract will provide a layout of what I will be discussing in this presentation. First, we will start with history of the sector, issues, size by geographic location, socio-demographic variables, public policy, limitations, and concluding with future steps. The human services subsector is broad and ever-expanding. In the 1980s and 1990s, the government began to rely on the human services nonprofit sector to assist and provide services to those that needed immediate aid all over the world. Not only did this bring about a globalized increase in demand for human services assistance, but this also caused an increase in competition between for-profit and non-profit agencies. Administrative and bureaucratic demands started to hinder some of the flexibility that this sector had prior to receiving so much funding from the government. We can see the evolution of why the subsector has grown so rapidly in the past half a century, and we can see why the issues that the sector is facing are more difficult to mitigate now more than ever. The issues surrounding the human services sector stem from many new changes that have occurred within the last 20 to 30 years. Accountability, increase in competition, and shifts in public opinion on the nature of nonprofits' abilities to generate revenue have all impacted the way that the human services sector can deliver assistance to individuals. Accountability issues are particularly salient at the moment because of all the scandals that have occurred in recent years with prominent human services organizations. Technology is another issue which not only does the human services sector face, but nonprofits more broadly. Not knowing how to maintain and attract individuals to their organization, some human services nonprofits can face challenges when trying to navigate in a technology-heavy world. Political participation is another challenge that this sector faces. Larger and more well-established organizations may feel more stable and therefore more willing to allocate resources and finances to advocacy, while some smaller organizations may not have the resources or means to do this. This can lead to only the top organizations communicating with lawmakers in select areas rather than hearing from more diverse organizations at a grassroots level. Measures of size, for the purposes of this paper, will be measured in three ways: by number of volunteers, total revenue reported, and number of individuals served. Because the human services sector is so broad, there are many organizations within the sector. GuideStar lists more than 131,328 organizations alone under general human services. Amount of revenue generated is a key factor when looking at the human services sector's size. The Urban Institute reports that in 2018, this sector was one of the top 3 in terms of total revenue generated, with an estimated $234.1 billion in revenue. Volunteering is another measure that can indicate how much of their time individuals are spending on issues in the sector. The number of volunteers who dedicate their time and services to this sector spend the highest number of hours on social and human services. By reviewing the number of individuals served, we can understand the size of a nonprofit and the viability of these organizations in a climate that faces so many aforementioned issues. Organizations that do not provide a large amount of services are typically smaller or newer, whereas organizations that provide the majority of services tend to be larger and more well-established organizations. Outlined here, we have 2 examples of organizations whose size is measured across the 3 dimensions. The American Cancer Society operates at a nationwide level, while Tubman operates at a local level. The organizations that I will be looking at for this paper are Goodwill Industries of Houston, located in Houston, Texas; Operation Comfort, located in San Antonio, Texas; the Elizabeth Hospice, Inc., located in Escondido, California; and Teddy Bear Cancer Foundation, located in Santa Barbara, California. I chose to examine California and Texas because they are two states with large populations and a wide array of nonprofit organizations. The two graphs represent revenue by organization and individuals served. Looking at these graphs, we can see that organizations located in the more populated areas and being a well-established organization contributes to having a higher revenue and serving more individuals. Looking at these sociodemographic characteristics by location, we can see the poverty levels and race by location. Looking at race, we can see that San Antonio and Santa Barbara have the highest percentage of white-only race in their cities, while Houston has the most diversity out of the 4 cities. Poverty levels are also higher in the Texas cities rather than in the California cities, with Houston having the highest poverty levels. Here we can see total population and income. Houston has the highest population and Santa Barbara has the smallest. However, when looking at income, we can see that Escondido actually has the highest amount of income, with Santa Barbara falling close behind. Here we can see a cross-analysis of income and population, which just shows the previous details on the same graph. The findings presented indicate that larger operations tend to occur in areas that are more diverse and need these resources. Smaller organizations are still able to serve many individuals in relation to their population. The biggest hindrance to public policy is that because the human services sector is expanding so rapidly, it is tough for nonprofits to meet the demand. While more organizations are forming every day, we have seen that it takes a while for these organizations to generate enough revenue to meet the needs. One of the challenges will be partnering with the government to try to gain funding while still maintaining autonomy over the mission and goals for these organizations. The limitations from this study come primarily from the inability to find a wide array of organizations that contain all 3 measures of size as indicated in this paper. Looking at multiple organizations across more locations would provide a better understanding of the patterns that shape large and small organizations. Finally, the inability to cross-examine this data with other sectors that would be similar in terms of the type of services delivered, like the healthcare sector, also limit the amount of analyzation. The importance of the human services sector has been highlighted throughout this paper. The necessity for the sector to grow to meet the needs that the government and for-profit sector cannot is crucial for the public. The increasing issues in healthcare services and education is the reason why many of the top organizations in the sector are related to these issues. While there are many organizations that operate at a local level, there are not nearly as many organizations that operate at a national level. If more organizations could come together and perhaps merge their resources to create larger, more national operations, this would assist in the venture to provide service delivery to as many individuals as possible. Here are my references, and this concludes my presentation.